Hi everyone, welcome to another video. Today I want to share with you coloring with the Catherine Pooler ink pads and also an ombre background that I did with these ink pads that's super easy and only takes a few minutes. So to start off with, I am stamping on an A2 top folding card base. I masked off the back to protect it from any ink. I'm using icing on the cake, Mandarin Spice, and Sana ink. I've also got the coffee stamp from Cracker Box and Susie Stamps that I'll be using to make this background. Now I like to mask off the back of my card base when I'm stamping like this. That way I can start off the edge of the paper and I know no ink is going to get on the back of that card base. If you cut pattern paper, you know that it's never going to cut. Unless you're incredibly lucky, it's never going to cut perfectly. You're going to get some of that chopped off. So I like to start off and give it that more authentic look. So I'm starting with the Sana ink, which is my lightest color of ink, and I'm stamping down that coffee word. Started off the edge, stamped that row, then came in and stamped my second row all with the Sana ink. For my third row that I'm stamping, I'm going to tap the top of the coffee into Sana. Now once I do that, I want to make sure that I get it inked up very well, and then I'll go in and tap the bottom of that stamp into Mandarin Spice, which is my mid-tone color. Now whenever you're doing this, you need to make sure that you stamp into your lightest ink pad first. So I stamped into the Sana, then I went into the Mandarin Spice. Don't go back into Sana, you're going to contaminate your lighter ink pad. The lighter ink into your darker pad isn't going to hurt as it would whenever you take a dark color to your light pad. So I'll do it one more time. Started with Sana. Then I came in and tapped the bottom into Mandarin Spice, and then I stamp it down. These ink pads are so juicy, and this ink stays wet long enough that you don't even need to huff on this. It stays wet. You can just pop it right back onto your paper. You also want to make sure when you're doing the two-toned ink that you clean it off each time so you don't get contamination in your lighter ink pad as well. Now I stamped a whole row of the Mandarin Spice just by itself, and then I'm going to come in and this time I'll tap the top of the coffee, that is hard to say, into Mandarin Spice, which is my lighter ink, and then I'll tap the bottom into my darker ink, which is icing on the cake now. So start with your lightest, then go to your darkest. I'm shimming back and forth a little bit also to make sure that I get a little bit of a blend on my ink or on my stamp. Now if you're really worried about contamination, you could always do this with your Misty and just do one color, stamp it down, clean your stamp off, and then go in and do another color. But as long as you start with your lightest ink and you don't go back in with your darkest ink on your light pad, you should be perfectly fine. Then I'll go ahead and stamp 2 finishing rows with the icing on the cake. And that is my background. I removed my masking tape and this card base was ready to go. This took less than 5 minutes to make and it's gorgeous. So once I had that done, here's a closer look at that actually. I'll go ahead and show you. You can see you don't get much of a blend, but it is a great look. I love the way it turned out. Now next I want to go ahead and do some coloring with this coffee stamp that I have here. This is like a little to-go cup and it's adorable. Now I'm stamping this with the Midnight ink and I stamped it 4 separate times. Now I am going to be coloring on each one of these and do some paper piecing because these inks really just give you a nice solid color. Whenever you first put them on, it looks a little splotchy, but once it dries down into the paper, it is just gorgeous. So on this first cup, I'm going to take that heart, and I'm using makeup sponges here. You could use your mini distress blending tools, but makeup sponges work just fine. So I colored in the heart with the Mandarin Spice, and then also on the top of that cup, the lid, I left that one clear of any ink, and I'm going to use the lid and the heart from that first one. My second cup that I stamped, I'm going to go ahead and use the Sana ink, and I colored in the coffee cup itself. Then for my third one, I'm going to go ahead and take icing on the cake and the little holder in your coffee that is supposed to keep your hand from getting burnt. I'm going to go ahead and put icing on the cake right on that. This is a very dark ink. When it goes on, it does dry a little bit lighter, so it looks intense now, but it'll be fine. I want to go ahead and fussy cut each one of these out. That fourth cup I'm going to leave for now. I don't have any ink on that. That's going to be what I glue everything to. So that one I just left plain. I went ahead and cut out the little lid on this first one, and I'm also going to cut out the heart that I colored in with the Mandarin Spice ink. I'll go ahead and also cut out my little holder here that I colored in with the icing on the cake. And then finally, I will cut out both pieces of the cup that I colored in with the Sonnet ink. You want to make sure that when you're cutting these, you do a pretty good job, just because these are going to be what you'll see on your cup when it's all said and done. I didn't cut out the heart because that's going to be on top of the cup, so I just left that little piece right there on the bottom and just kept on cutting. Now, to finish these off before I start putting them on the actual cup itself, I'll go ahead and run a black marker along all the cut edges. That gives it a more finished look. It gives it a little bit better look once it's all said and done. It looks more cohesive too. Now for that third cup, I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. You do not need to be specific. As a matter of fact, it's better if you go inside the cut lines just a little bit. That way you don't have any white peeking out. You can see I even cut the little things off the lid there. That's no big deal because it's all going to be covered up. This is essentially just a placeholder to glue everything onto. So it's my base. I'm using liquid glue to glue everything down as well. This just gives me play time so I can move them around a little bit, get them positioned exactly where I want them. And I just like liquid glue for this kind of thing better. So on the first layer, after I cut out my little white cup that's my base, my next layer is going to be the pieces of the cup that I colored in with the Sonnet ink, the yellow ink. I'll go ahead and place those down straight onto the cup with liquid glue. Now I went ahead and put an acrylic block on top just to hold everything in place so it didn't shift around, and it got attached nice and snug to that the cup base that I have there. Then for the lid and the little holder that I colored in with icing on the cake and the white lid, I popped those up with double-sided adhesive for my next layer. And then finally I added more double-sided adhesive to that little heart and I placed it right on top. There's that little cup all pieced together and colored in so quickly with those inks. This is one of my favorite ways to color because it is so quick. And I love the boldness and richness of these colors all together. So I went ahead and did a little bit of die cutting off screen. I did banners that I did from white cardstock and patterned paper. And then I also took a craft panel and I ran that through my die cutting machine with a wood embossing folder. That is just one of my favorites. Now, I went ahead and also stamped It's Been a While, the stamp from Cracker Box and Susie Stamps, with icing on the cake right onto that white cardstock banner that I made as well. You can see these inks aren't just for blending and coloring. They also stamp beautifully. As you can see from that sentiment, it's nice and crisp and clear. It was time to start putting this card together, so I took my little wood panel that I embossed. I put that down onto my card base with double-sided adhesive, and I wanted to go ahead and put these banners down first before I actually attached them to the card base, just in case I needed to cut any off on the left-hand side there. I didn't want it to stick out on that side of the coffee cup. I wanted these to be tucked behind. So I put those down. I ended up cutting just a little bit off. I already have adhesive on all of these pieces, but I did add just a little extra piece to make sure this was nice and secure since it is a little bit on the heavy side. I didn't want it falling off or anything. So I added some more adhesive, placed that right down on the left-hand side, and then it was time to add just a little bit of shine. You could leave this as is, but I went ahead and grabbed my Copper Nuvo drops, and I'm just going to place 3 little dots down. If you have trouble getting a little point on these, just give it a good flick from behind. You can also, if you don't have enough flick power, you can just give them a really good tap from behind. If that doesn't work, take a needle or a straight pen and just kind of swirl it in the top, and that should get rid of the little point there as well. There is a final look at this card all said and done. I am loving the way this turned out. It screams fall. Here's one final look at the card, and that is going to do it for me today. On the left side of your screen, there are going to be different links that you can click on. You can also subscribe to my channel. As always, supplies are listed down in the description box if you have any questions about what I used on my card today. Thank you guys for watching, and happy crafting.